Hi everybody. Today we're going to create an OMG background. I'm Creative Katie, Karen Burchill, and this is an art journal tutorial. So I absolutely loved this art journal page. It started with a gel print and a napkin, and I loved the colors and just how it turned out. Now I know you can't have access to that gel print or maybe even the napkin, so I challenged myself to recreate it using the go-to colors and my stencils. So here are the colors that I use: bright aqua, quinacridone magenta, Naples yellow, and a greenish blue, but you could use a phthalo green or blue. Now this right here motif was a black and white napkin. And so I decided I'm going to use what I have. I have this Damask stencil that is a little larger scale, which is fine. And I am going to create my own designer tissue paper, except this time I'm using the white layer of the napkin. And I'm just putting black acrylic paint through this stencil to get that. Now, the reason I'm choosing to you put this on a napkin and decoupage the napkin part down as opposed to just stenciling right onto the background is I want that added texture and interest from the napkin. There are going to be some wrinkles, there will be some edges, and I want those to show because that adds interest in my background. And the gel print one that I did with the napkin definitely had that, and I liked that addition. So I'm very quickly stenciling this down. I'm not trying to get it perfect. I don't want to get it too wet because the napkin will rip. So layers over time. And there we have our DIY napkin. And I'm just going to extend it a little bit out just to make use of every little bit of that napkin. Any leftovers that I have after this process goes into my stash. I have a little basket on the side of my desk. Things go there. This is where I go when I go and make my mini makes. Now I'm just using a liner brush and water to water cut portions of this napkin that I want to use. I'm aiming for 3. 3 is a nice number, and it always looks good on the page to have it in 3 pages. I know that some of this is going to get pushed back. You're not going to see it. My goal isn't to have every little bit of it seen. My goal is to have parts of this peeking through and adding interest. Now that I've decided on that, I'm just going to decoupage this down with my fluid matte medium. Links to the mediums that I use, as well as the stencils, can be found in the description box below. And as always, I will do a recap with my prompt and process cards at the end of the video. I'm using gel or TCW modeling paste through the stencil. I put some on my glass mat, and then with a key card, I'm putting it through. I've chose this linked tiles one because it feels vintage and it goes together with the theme. Flip through your stencils, find the one that works best. This one has a lot of stenciled parts, which I like because it's going to catch the paint and show off really well. But all the stencils that I use here are winners, that they have a great usability. This is Chickenwire reverse, and it's the 6-inch one, and I love the scale of this for that little extra something something. I put all 3 of these stencils on my must-have list. But until you do, use what you have. So now it's time to get out the colors. These colors are magical. That Naples yellow, when you mix it with the Quin magenta, turns into this corally color. If you have less or more of one or the other, you get different tones of this color, and they're all keepers. And when we're blending them on the page, that's when the magic happens. Here's Naples yellow with the greenish blue from Amsterdam. And again, you get, depending on how much yellow, how much green blue you have, you get different tones. There's the greenish blue straight up. You can see the difference that it is. And here's the Quin magenta straight. Now, if I mix the Quin magenta and the green blue, you get, depending on how much, almost a navy or a purple, both of which are lovely on this background. So I'm applying the yellow first. I want to be sure that I have this in several places. And again, I'm aiming for that 3. And then I'm blending other colors in. I'm adding a bit of the Naples yellows some of the time when I'm blending it. I'm using my fingers. I'm using a baby wipe to blend the colors. I'm also using the makeup sponge. I want some of the colors straight up. I want some of them blended. There's making that purple in there. Oh. These colors are scrumptious on their own, but when they blend and are next to each other on this page, they are another level. And you can see the texture from the modeling paste, how well that's showing up. I'm working with very little paint at a time. I want to see what's behind it. I don't want it to go too terribly opaque. The Naples yellow tends to be a more opaque paint than the green blue and the quinacridone magenta. So it's going to push back whatever's behind it a little bit more, meaning you're not going to see any of that stenciling. The bright aqua is another very opaque paint. And I've added a very little of the bright aqua on there, but it has a certain brightness to it that I just feel adds. So if those 3 stencils are must-have stencils, these 4 colors must have. I'm just looking around, adding the colors. I don't really have a plan. I'm just following my instincts of what looks good. Going over top with a little bit on different areas, especially if they are the more translucent paints, transparent, they will still give you that different shade. Here I'm putting the pink on top of the blue and it's making that purple. And I'm just adding that little bit of purple. That darkness just really makes those other colors pop. So I figure I've done a fairly good job of recreating that background. This one is a little brighter, and that's okay. So while all this paint is drying, I am looking for a focal image. Now, one of the sources of focal image are free domain pictures, and this one's off of Pixabay. And there's this girl with the clocks. Now I don't need the clock, so I can edit the picture. I can crop that part out, and then I can blow this picture up to whatever size I need. And because it's a grayscale picture, it works perfectly. So I printed it off and just cut it out. And I just printed on copy paper. This stencil is called Angel Wings, aptly named. And I want that behind this girl. This girl looks down and discouraged. And I'm giving her some wings. Then I decide I'm going to do a little more stenciling. I'm using quinacridone magenta through this Chickenwire reverse stencil. And just adding a little more interest to the background. I love this background. Then I'm coming in with some of the Naples yellow. So I haven't introduced any new stencils at this stage. I'm using the same ones with different colors. I'm edging this in black, but I'll do a better job later on. I have some empty spaces, which are where I'm hoping or wishing that I had some more black. So I'm taking that stencil, Damask stencil, and stenciling a couple extra motifs in where I think it's missing or where it's gotten pushed back by the paints. I positioned the girl a little bit to the right, off center, and some of the wings off the page. I think that makes it more interesting. Taking a makeup sponge and white acrylic paint, I'm just stenciling in these angel wings. I will come back and give this another coat. Build up the opaqueness over time. Don't get too impatient and put globs of paint on. That will seep under the stencil. I was going to add gold to it, or I did add gold, and then I ended up going back with the white. I didn't like the look. I like the pure white better. So live and learn. Giving this a good dry before I glue down the focal image. Now, if there was a motif that was sticking outside her head that looked awkward, at this point I could take white gesso, kind of smudge it out a little bit, put some red, just plain color. But this one worked out perfectly. There was none of that. I'm using gel medium from the Crafter's Workshop to glue this down. And I wasn't very careful, so I got a wrinkle right across the top of her head. I wrap my gel medium brush in saran wrap and clean it at the end. Now I'm using the floating acrylic technique and shading around the focal image. I want it to stand out a little bit more from my very interesting, lovely background. You can use charcoal pencil here if you wish, but just remember that will not be permanent. And if you have to be careful of what else you're going to do later. but no more wet layers are going on, so it would have been safe. I have a selection of sentiments. I have started an angel wings sentiment pack that hopefully will be coming out soon. If you're interested, let me know and I will work faster on that. This one says like a butterfly, her wings unfolded. And I'm playing with the fonts here and the sizes. And in a bit, I'm going to show you all 4 selections and you can vote in the comment section. Which one did you like the best and why? That one I thought was too big, so I'm making it smaller, have a different orientation. I kind of like this one going at an angle. Trust your wings. This was kind of an old English font. I thought went well with the vintage feel. This one had the same font, head up, wings out. The font has to fit. You have to fit the size, the feel of the page, and how you arrange it. And like a butterfly, her wings unfolded. I really like this font. I thought it really went well. So I printed it smaller on this one and I kept it as a block. And as you all know, this is the one that I ended up using. So I'm just tweaking this, cutting off some of that white because I don't want any excess white. I'm thinking about whether I want to separate all these letters, but I'm thinking I want to keep it as a block. So here's your turn to vote. Do you like this one? Number 1. Number 2. Number 3. Or number 4. There is no wrong answer. So I grabbed the gel medium and the brush that was in the saran wrap and I'm gluing this down. I'm just edging the page using the floating acrylic technique. I put the tape across the top to keep that straight edge. This is a 9x12 Canson mixed media page that I've taken off the coils. That way I get to work flat. At the end, I'll put it all back in the coils. I'm using the same shading technique around the sentiment just to make it stand out a little bit more. Now here's a trick to take off the tape so you're not pulling paper. Put the heat tool on it. It loosens this glue and it comes off without pulling off any paper. Bonus tip. So how'd I do? Loving, loving, loving that background. So let's recap. I started by creating my own designer tissue paper. with the stencil and black acrylic paint. I used the white layers of napkins. I did some stamping, or I did some stenciling to create more pattern on the background. And I put modeling paste through the stencil. All my stencils work together. I applied color using the block and blend. My fingers, the makeup sponge. These colors work so well together. They are must-haves in your stash. I stenciled more using the same colors and the same stencils that I had already used. I used some public domain pictures from Pixabay. Changed the size. I stenciled the wings on and then shaded the focal image to make it stand out. I added the sentiment and I edged the page. I splattered with gold. I hope you love this one as much as I do. Close-ups of the background and parts of this page are following. Give me a thumbs up. Check out the description box for more details and names of supplies and stencils. And until next time, go get creative.